Hi students, this is Karimunisa Sayed, Associate Professor in Zoology. Welcome back to session 35 under Zoology Paper 2, which includes non-car data part 2. In this session, we are going to learn echinoderm larvae. First of all, let us learn the structure and significance of two important larvae of Asteroidea and also Holothuroidea, because both of them they have a lot of resemblances. Then again the question comes, why do we want to learn the structure and significance of this Bipineria larva and also Auricularia larva? Definitely these two larvae show lot of adaptation to their free living, that means active life in the marine habitat. Of course, we need to attend this session only after having the sufficient knowledge about the life cycle of sea star or the Astreus. Coming to the structure of first larva, that is the Bipineria larva, and as already we have studied, you know that this larva is found in the life history of starfish, and it is characteristic larva of not only starfish, all other members of class Asteroidea. We have seen Bipineria larva is formed from early Bipineria or a hypothetical Diplurula larva which is supposed to resemble the ancestor. So therefore, Bipineria larva is formed from the Gastrula larva by its elongation in the length and also through a intermediate hypothetical Diplurula larva stage, which is also called early Bipineria. If you look into the structure here, unlike the adult, which is radially symmetrical, the Bipineria larva is showing very clearly bilateral symmetry. And of course, the presence of ciliary arms indicate that it is a free swimming larva, and it is also pelagic larva. That means it will be floating on the surface of the sea water. The anterior end, as you see here, the picture is elongated to form a pre-oral lobe, and in the posterior region we also see a broad post-oral region or post-oral lobes. The ciliary bands at the pre-oral lobe are well developed and they form two separate bands, pre-oral band of cilia and post-oral band of cilia. The pre-oral ciliated band surrounds the pre-oral lobe of larva. The post-oral ciliated band appears to be longitudinally placed and forms a complete ring between the mouth and anus. The pre-oral and post-oral ciliated bands are continued over a series of prolongations of the body called arms. You can see the lateral and anterior extensions of the body called arms. So these arms are as follows. There is a single ventromedian arm, and there are pair of preoral arms. There is also a single median dorsal arm, a pair of preoral arms, which is a repetition, a pair of anterior dorsal arms. These are the anterior dorsal arms, and a pair of posterior lateral arms and also post-oral arms. So these are the 7 types of arms we come across in the structure of bipinnerial larva. As you see, the bipinnerial larva is bilaterally symmetrical, microscopic, transparent, thereby just because it is transparent, we are able to see through some of its internal organs also. The preoral and ventromedian arms are developed from the preoral ciliary band, as you see here, and the rest of the arms are developed from the post-oral ciliated band. These two ciliated bands are actually developed from the single ciliated band in the initial stages of larva, just like as in the case of the auricularia larva. That means bipinnerial larva shows lot of developmental similarities with the auricularia larva of Holothuriidea. Proceeding further, these arms are also provided with muscles and they are contractile in nature. That means they are helpful in the process of locomotion and also feeding. The anterolateral arms are absent. At the anterior end of the archenteron, as we know, the larva develops a mouth and the blastopore is retained as the anus. So, bipinnerial larvae exhibit deuterostomia and the digestive system is said to be well developed, complete with mouth and anus. The bipinnerial larva resembles Ternaria larva of well-known glasses. It also resembles Auricularia larva of Holothurians. Because of this similarity, echinoderms are said to share a common diplurala-like larva of hemicardates. Then coming to the structure of Auricularia larva. The Auricularia larva is found in the life cycle of holothuroids. Under Holothuriidea, we have studied sea cucumbers, holothrix. So as you see here, just like bipinnerial larva, Auricularia larva is also bilaterally symmetrical. It is also microscopic. Body is transparent. Presence of ciliary loops indicate that it is a freely swimming pelagic larva. But here, elongated arms are absent. Another important feature of Auricularia larva is that it is characterized by the presence of a single longitudinal ciliated band forming preoral loop as well as pre-anal loop and an anal loop, we can say. It is an anal loop. The preoral lobes are also well developed here and there are no calcareous rods separating these arms. Here, these are replaced by spheroids, circular shape or star shaped structure or ossicles. Elementary canal is also well developed, just like in the case of bipinnarea larva. It opens with the mouth at the anterior end, and also at the posterior end it has got its own anus. But here the intestine is curved. So with regard to the size, usually Auricularia larva measures about 1 millimeter in length. But in Japan and Bermuda, very big Auricularia larval forms are developed. They will be about 15 millimeters in length. Here you see the picture of Auricularia larva. Coming to the significance of bipinnarea larva and Auricularia larva, the first and foremost significance is that development of larval stages aids the animal in the dispersal of species. What does it mean? As the adult echinoderms or animals are somewhat sluggish, they cannot disperse themselves all over the world. Therefore, their larvae, which are pelagic and free living and swimming, help in the dispersal of species across the seas all over the globe. Larvae remain planktonic for sufficient time to be swept away from the place of their birth to the new areas, or to restock the native areas. So in this manner, the species, if it gets dispersed to various regions, obviously the survival of the species will be better. That is first and foremost significant. The second one is the development of larval stages during the life cycle of echinoderms helps the species in feeding. By being pelagic and drifting away from their native areas, the larvae will aid the species in feeding from a different source from their adults. Thus, the competition for food with their own adults gets reduced. That means the larvae, they try to feed from the different source of food. The similarity of reducing the competition of food by the larvae from the adults is found even in the case of Ternaria larva. The Ternaria larva of Belnoclasses is also a free-swimming planktonic form which usually exploits the natural resources of the sea away from its own adult. So we can see the larval character of a lower chordate in the echinoderms. Similarly, study of echinoderm larvae also helps us to understand the relationship between different classes of echinoderms and also between the different phyla of animal kingdom. Coming to the origin of classes. As we see in the echinoderm larvae, both the larvae are free swimming and pelagic. They also have common structures like dorsoventrally flattened body. Then larvae are microscopic, body is transparent, and it is bilaterally symmetrical. These larvae have ciliated loops or bands. They have similar digestive system, alimentary canal or gut, and coelomic origin is also same. That means these larvae have enterocoelic coelom. This indicates that they must have originated from a common ancestor. And what could be the structure of that ancestor? Which was probably a coelomate, bilaterally symmetrical and free living. Therefore, it is suggested that Diplurula and Pentactula larvae, these two are the hypothetical larvae, are the two such hypothetical common ancestors from which modern or living echinoderms might have originated. That means the larval similarities throw some light on the origin of different classes of echinoderms from a common ancestor. Then moving further with regard to the taxonomic affinities, structurally as we have seen, Bipinnaria larva and Auricularia larva show close similarities. They don't have elongated arms. Particularly anterolateral arms are absent. Hence, both these larvae form a separate group of echinoderm larvae called Auricularia group, which includes only the larvae of class Astroidea and class Holothuroidea. So on the basis of larval similarities, Astroidea should be kept close to Holothuroidea. Isn't it? Both the larvae are similar. But according to the morphological characters, we can see the sea cucumbers don't resemble the morphological features of sea stars. Similarly, paleontological study of fossils also does not show any resemblances between the adult astroids with the holothuroids. This indicates that astroids and holothuroids must have evolved as independent classes. That means there is no close relationship with regard to the evolution. The larval resemblances are only superficial. Next important significance of this larvae is the phylogenetic affinities they show with the other classes of echinodermata. So you can see there is close larval similarity between the Bipinnaria larva and Auricularia larva, which is due to convergent larval evolution among the unrelated adult groups of animals of class Astroidea and Holothuroidea. Similarly, the major differences between the larvae of closely related forms like Astroidea and Ophiuroidea. Sea stars and brittle stars, the adults have similar structures, but larvae are different. So this is indicated by the divergent evolution. So the larvae show divergent evolution, though the adults are similar. Therefore, it is concluded that to deduce phylogenetic affinities, between the classes of Echinodermata based on the larval resemblances is not admissible or not possible. So here you can see the similarities between the Auricularia larva and Bipinnaria larva of Auricularia group of larvae. So both of them, they have short ciliary arms are the bands and the straight alimentary canal. Both of them are microscopic. Body is bilaterally symmetrical and highly transparent. Then coming to the last important significance of this larvae, the Bipinnaria larva shows, as we have seen, a close resemblance, structural resemblance with the Auricularia larva of Holothurians on one hand. On the other hand, the Auricularia larva in turn shows close resemblances with the Ternaria larva of Belnoglossus. Further embryological studies also indicate that both echinoderms and lower chordates have similar cleavage. That is, cleavage is indeterminate in both of them, and the origin of coelom is also same, that is enterocoelic coelom both of them have. Therefore, larval similarities, serological and other evidences. Serological means, testing of serum. The unrelated serum coagulates. Only if the species are related, the serum will not coagulate, just like the blood grouping and blood transfusion. So based on serological evidences and other paleontological evidences support that fact that echinoderms and chordates, particularly the lower chordates, are closely related groups. So with that, we have come to the end of the session. In this session, we have learned the structure and significance of Bipinnaria larva and Auricularia larva. So these are the further references for future studies, and please write to us your feedback to zoology.bcu@gmail.com. Thank you.